Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 32nd Annual Chicago TI International World Fair. Hopefully the title is not longer than the event itself. There are still people coming in, but we're beginning now. We've had some technical problems, as you know, getting everything set up. We have some interesting demos today. We have a number of people from all over the place. We have people coming in from Maryland, from Pennsylvania, from Iowa, South Dakota, Florida. We even have a few local people. Oh, not to mention a few people coming in from overseas. We're going to begin in the traditional fashion. Our first presenter is going to be Barry Harmson from Amsterdam, who is going to tell us all about what's going on. Also show us a couple of programs from is it Sweden? Denmark, sorry. I want to start even worse. Anyway, without further ado, Barry Harmson.
Thank you, Will. 2014 was for me a year with a lot of traveling. I made 2 cruises with the Holland America line, and I visited some TI meetings. I don't want to bother you with Holland America line, but I want to show you about the TI. My first meeting in Europe for the TI was in Vienna, also that they started a new TI group in Vienna, and that was done by Klaus Lukacek. He is the second on the right, and he is the guy who has meetings organized in Vienna every month, and you see he has an average of about 8 till 12 persons every month, and it's a well-functioning user group. Of course, they are gaming, and but also Klaus is one of the testers of the new Ford module of Mark Wilson. My second journey was to Birkenau in Germany. It's a tradition that the TI group in Germany, called Error-Free, is organizing a spring meeting in the little town of Birkenau every year, mostly in April. And this one was visited by about 30 people, and this is the group that came to Birkenau to celebrate the TI 99 in Birkenau. Maybe you see a lot of people that you know. The shirt from the right, for instance, is Fred Kaal from Holland, and on the outmost left side you see Jens Eiker Hartwig from Flensburg. In that meeting, we had the opportunity to give to Michael Saf the Burkle Award. I took it from Chicago to Europe, and I handed it over to Michael Saf in the meeting in Birkenau. And he was very thrilled, and thank you all for that fine reward for his work. On this picture you see the chairman of the club Error-Free in Germany, the only remaining club in Germany. His name is Wolfgang Bertsch, and he has organized a lot of meetings for the TI. And you see him with his TI system that is not recognizable as a TI system at all, but inside you have the TI stuff. My third meeting that I want to mention is a meeting in Oxford in England, organized by the English TI user group. And it's not the English TI user group, it's the UK user group. I have to be precise at that. And that meeting was not visited by a lot of people, but quite a lot of people were coming from Europe to see what's going on, because it was announced that Gary Smith would give us information about his new Geneva project. Unlucky enough, Gary Smith was not there. His father went ill. The only thing that were available were the prototypes of the hardware he had and written information about the working of that two devices. I made pictures of it, and this is a picture of the unfinished new Geneva. I can tell you a lot of specifications, but I can't answer questions about it. The only thing that's important is it's a device that is totally based on the capabilities of programmable gate arrays. All the hardware specifications are in digitized form available in those two big chips and loaded there. It was a heck of a work to get all that information together, because quite a few chips were not in the libraries of FGA information. But at the moment, that end is near. In the brochures that Gary Smith gave us in Oxford, he expected to be 2 more years to get the project finished. And well, let's hope for that. I'm not sure. If you look at this picture, you see a lot to do. There was a second item available, and that was a big Ford module. It was a co-production of Gary Smith and Mark Robert Wills. From that module I have also the written information, and the people who want to, I'm not in the position to hand over copies of that information, because I think Gary Smith has to do it himself, but I have it with me, and it's not a secret, so you can read it and find the information you need. This is a picture I made of the module, and it's a big one, and it has new possibilities and a higher speed than the turbo force of microprocessor. Last month we had a meeting in Vienna. That is the yearly meeting of all TI user groups in Europe, and this time it was organized in Vienna, Austria, and that was not only a reason to go to Vienna to see the TI, but they have excellent beer. The weather was fine, so here you see me together with, in the middle, Trevor Stevens. He is the chairman of the British group, and on the left you see David Kane, and he is the editor of the newsletter of the group. By the way, the newsletter didn't appear for a few years, but since shortly, David Kane is now the new editor, and he is working at his third number of the newsletter of the group, called TI Mess, and not TI MASH, but Times. It was a nice meeting with a lot of people from all around Europe. And of course, the Faire was supported by Sandra. Sandra is the girlfriend of Klaus, and she baked us a TI-99 with cake and marzipan. We have also a guy who is printing plastic covers for TI equipment, and here you see the cover for the compact flash device of Malilon. That one was for sale at Vienna. You know him, he gave us a demonstration, but to tell what he is demonstrating is probably wrong. He will give the demonstration today of the same items.
You can see the screenshot of that.
You'll hear of it later.
Something Hal tells me. Soon. Be prepared.
Every year we have awards for the best achievements of European TIers, and of course on the item computing we have Mouseguard, and he wrote in a short time 4 excellent TI games. TI Scramble, Titanium, and Road Hunter are on this module, and I will show them later. Rasmus Mouseguard won the award for computing, and these are the last numbers of the Dutch magazine Titanium, and the editor of that magazine won the award for community service. This one is a little bit disturbed, but we have for 2050 another plans for nice meetings all over Europe. In spring we will have another meeting in Birkenau again. In May there will be an AGM, that means annual general meeting, and a workshop in the Midlands in England. And the European TREF will be in England as well, and will take place in the town of Crewe. Crewe is situated right on the cross point of all the railroads in Great Britain, and is known for the factories of Bentley and Rolls-Royce. So if you want to come to Europe, there are a few opportunities to come over. You have to pay your own ticket. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Barry. Barry will be back in a little while to demonstrate some of the programs from Denmark, and we're going to take a short break now. So continue.
The engineer's ignoring you.
No, I think, the engineer says it's okay. Okay, we're ready to go again. Our next presenter will be Lee Stewart, who is, that means this is the cartridge that he has produced and has available here at the fair. Lee, take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to run this on Classic 99, but it should run pretty much the same on the TI with the cartridge. A formula for x equals y plus z, that you actually present the, you program it that way. You say x equals y plus z. It's all in fixed, right in between the operators. You have the variables and constants. But in Forth, it's a stack-oriented language. It is, you might have heard that, I'm sure you've all heard the term RPN, or reverse Polish notation, which is that the operators are after, that is in a postfix notation. They're after the components they operate on. All right, so I'm going to just kind of give an overview of what Forth is to begin with, and hopefully I don't take up too much of this presentation with that, and get right into the guts of FB Forth 2.0. It's 2.0, as some of you know, because 1.0 was my first attempt at a file-based implementation of TI Forth, and it was pretty much TI Forth without using the sector I/O that was so problematic for trying to transfer programs from one person to another, or one system to another, and 2.0 was hoisting that into cartridge space. In a good overview of Forth is Appendix A of Thinking Forth by Leo Brody, in which he describes how it works. The dictionary is a linked list of tokens called words and numbers. And an example of that, let's get started with, see if I can run this without screwing it up. All right, this is how it comes up. The current version is 2.0:1. I did put a fix at just this last week, actually. We're at the interpreter. It's accepting input from the keyboard, and we'll just type some stuff here, and we get. We're going to clear the screen, and then 0, 0, which is column, row, go to XY, and it does it for us. We have to type that to do it. The input of a stream of tokens separated by spaces in Forth, typed directly on the terminal. Edited and loaded from disk is another way we can do this, and we'll show you that. Some defining words. Colon is the principal one you would be using, and it defines a word, puts it in the dictionary, and from that point on, it's part of Forth, and you can use it. Obviously, if you don't save it on disk, the next time you come up, you'll have to reload that or retype it, redefine it. The kernel is always there, and there are some, let's see, how many words did I have at the last count? It was almost 500. It's 400 and, well, I'll find it later. 400 and some words that are in the dictionary. What was in TI Forth's kernel was, I think, around half of that, maybe a little more than half of that. All right. With colon, we can define a word. Let's call it page, and we'll do what we just did. Clear screen and put the cursor on the upper left corner. And you end a colon definition with semicolon. You can see I have separated each one of these tokens with a space. It could be one or more spaces. Now we, all right, I obviously made a mistake. There's a .s, which will tell me what's on the stack. Notice there are two words, or two numbers, a 20 and a 0. It tells me at the 20th character I was about to type is where the error is, or it happened just before that. 0 means it came from the terminal. Any other number means tells me what block on disk it came from the F blocks or whatever blocks file I had open it came from. So here the 20th I had go to XY, and it is, I'm going to get rid of those two. I needed to do something like this. Page, CLS, 0, 0, go to XY is one word, then semicolon, and now it likes it. So now I can just type page, and the threaded interpreter will go back and execute the CLS 00 go to XY for me, and there it is. Other defining words, you can use code. ASM colon is a synonym for it that you can put in machine language or TMS 9900 assembler, which is one of the options. I can type menu to get those options that are on whatever fblocks file it found, and you can see some of these. You can see them at your leisure later. There is a text 80 mode if it finds the F18A, or what's the other one, the TMS 9938. Is that visible well enough, or should I go back to the 40 column? All right. Constant is another defining word. Variable is another defining word. Constant I will use for defining a word called 17. You give the value and then the word constant to define the word that follows it. So now I have a word called 17, which should put 17 on the stack, and you can see that it's there. The .s, if I didn't explain, I think I did, it just means do a non-destructive list of what's on the stack, on the parameter stack. So 17 is there, just as if I had typed 17. Now I have 2 on the stack, and I don't need those. I'm going to clear the stack with SP exclamation. Another defining word is variable, and let's give 100 bananas. Let's see, I got a variable, just like constant, needs to be right after what you put in it. Bananas. Yeah. Did I spell that right? All right, now if I type bananas, I should have chosen a different word. It's going to give me an address where bananas is located, and there is a word called fetch, which is merely the @ symbol, which will now give me what's at that address, which was 100. I can store information there with the store word, which is the exclamation point. So if I want to store 34 bananas, then I need to put the number, give the address, and store. And now if I type bananas again and fetch and then list the stack, you see I have 34 now. I'm going to clear the stack. Oh, by the way, you can see this operates just the same as TurboForth, those of you that have seen TurboForth, in that it gives the depth after the OK. So you see 0 right there. All right. The stack, oh, you can also add to a location. So I can add 2 bananas with plus store. I'm going to go back to text mode so it's a little more visible until I actually need the 80 columns. All right, it's a LIFO stack, as you can tell. Let's see, I'm going to go continue there. Control structures, you have if then, if else then, do loop, begin until, begin while, repeat. The thing you need to remember is that a word like if then the word if needs to test something, so that item needs to be on the stack. These words also can only be in colon definitions. It is inconvenient for that sometimes because you want to be able to test something without needing to put it in a definition. But that's the way it is. You can actually define a word to do that. And I might try to do that myself because I've run into situations where I want to test a load without having to define another word because it wastes space. But anyway, I'm going to show you a couple of these control structures. There's a word called use BFL for use block file. The current one it looks for is F blocks on disk 1. So I'm going to use one I've called stuff. Hopefully it'll find it. Okay. And I'm going to list block 2. Notice the 2 has to come first. A comment is an open paren followed by a space. So you can see the first line, line 0, says if ... then demo, and ends with a closed paren. The interpreter ignores all that stuff, but it's helpful when you want to put stuff on a block to tell you what you did. Because believe me, I'm sure you've all run into the situation that even a month later you forget why you did something if you didn't document it. It can be really rather messy. All right, I've defined a word here called, which I'll call, is the stack dirty? That is there anything on the stack? Question mark stack underscore dirty. And you can see I put depth, and then if is going to consume the output of depth. Depth will tell me how many numbers are on the stack. And then if the stack is dirty, that is if it's non-zero, it's going to print yes, period, and beep. And the then is, you can also use end if, is the end of that structure. Dot S is print the stack, and the semicolon ends the definition. You see the semicolon S off to the right? That's an exit. That simply tells load to stop reading that block so it doesn't waste time. All right, let's load that block. And run question mark, stack, underscore dirty. We did not get a yes or a beep. So it must mean that there was nothing on the stack. Well, let's put some things on the stack. You see there now there are 3, and we'll run that again. And it beeps and shows me. In any event, it's going to show me what's on the stack, or not. All right. I'll not belabor that anymore, but you can see that Forth is a programming language for creating well, I don't know if you can see it, but it is, for creating application-oriented languages. Stack-oriented subroutines and variables are executable words. There's no application framework necessary. You can define the word and run it. You don't have to set something else up in order to be able to do that. It's extensible, as we've just seen. We've already defined a few words. It's a threaded interpretive language. There are 2 interpreters. There's an address interpreter, which is the low level. It's a string of code field addresses that it simply loads the address and then jumps to it, or branches to it. And each of these colon definitions stores a list of code field addresses that the interpreter then will go execute. And when one of those code field addresses is another word with a string of code field addresses, these are just simply pushed onto the return stack, and it just walks all the way through that and, until it gets done, comes back to the top level. The outside interpreter is the text interpreter, and that's what we're in right now, typing this information. It looks for words every time we type. It goes from the bottom of the dictionary all the way to the top if it can't find the word. And if it's a number, that's the only drawback with this that I see. If it's a number, it's going to go all the way through the dictionary, the kernel plus what you've defined, until it doesn't find a number. Then it's going to try to convert it to a number, and only then. And if it's a not legitimate number, then it goes on the stack. And if it's not, then you get a question mark with whatever you type repeated. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty here of Forth 2.0. I'll start out with bitmap mode. It's one of the things you have all of the graphics real estate pretty much available to you. In bitmap mode, the graphics mode is, let's start out with the bitmap mode. That's graphics 2. And in FB Forth 2.0, that just puts you into a gray screen with when you put information on it, it's going to be black. But there's no cursor. I can't type it. I actually can type something, but it's blind, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to text mode and get rid of what's on the stack to not confuse us. That's another irritating thing. Sometimes when there's a mistake, it puts 2 numbers on the stack. It puts the cursor position and the block number that you were on. And a lot of times you don't want those numbers, but you're going to have to just get rid of them and deal with it if you make a mistake. But they're very useful if you're editing in the editor. You can type where, and it will put you back into the block that caused the error at the cursor of the next word, or next character that was going to be interpreted, which is very useful. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. But graphics 2 is one, and we have, I'm going to list block 7. And here's a program. I'm not going to go through the program, but it's going to draw lines from the upper left of graphics 2 mode to the bottom and just walk all the way up to all the way across. It's going to fill the screen with lines. And you see the begin on line 10, line 9, begin question terminal. That is looking for a break key so that you can actually interrupt this program. So if I just type, first of all, I have to load it. All right, and then we'll run lines. It will put it into bitmap mode, graphics 2 mode, and start drawing the lines. Now they're all black, not very interesting. What I'm going to do when this gets done is to, actually maybe I'll interrupt it if I get done talking first. There's a mode called DTOG, which this is using line to draw these lines, and line uses dot. And dot looks to see if the draw mode is toggle, draw, or undraw. So undraw obviously would erase, but if I'm in toggle mode, the way this is using a Bressenham algorithm for drawing the line, so that a line that's right next to one that's already been drawn, it will spill into it. So if I put it in toggle mode, if there's a dot on, it's going to turn it off. And if I get to the next line, and you'll see an interesting pattern that happens here. I'm going to first type DTOG and then lines. Not terribly useful, but interesting. More useful than the graphics mode when you're developing something using bitmap graphics is the split mode or the split 2 mode. The split mode gives you an 8-line text screen at the bottom, and the rest is bitmap. You have to realize that you have 0 now down to dot row 127, not 191, or you'll screw up the text stuff. And the split 2 mode is a 4-line text area at the top of the screen, and the rest from dot 32 down to 191 dot row are usable. So here let's do split 2 right now. Split is what the 64 column editor uses, and we can use that then. Split 2, how am I doing on time?
Fine.
Okay, split 2. I'm going to use circle and rectangle. Actually, I abbreviated rect. So let's here I'll list the circle. Oh, that's not useful. Let's go to text 80 and list it. What was it? 8. Okay. A block is 64 columns wide, so obviously at a 40-column screen, you're going to get wrapping, and it's hard to read. Anyway, here's circle. I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4 constants. The center, the dot column, the center of the circle, the center dot row, the dot radius, or the radius in dots, and radius squared. A variable y minus the variable y plus. I'm not going to go through the logic here, but you can see that it's using a loop. What I'm basically doing is taking the previous, starting with the left of the circle, taking the previous dot column and row, and drawing a line up and down from that to the next dot column, where the coordinates are. Let's load that. Now let's go into split 2 mode. And I probably should put it back in draw mode. This is something I thought I was going to forget. And let's do a circle at, I don't know, let's do it 50-50 and a radius of 20. Actually, that may be too tight. Let's do a radius of 10. Circle. And you can use your imagination what you could do with that or not. I'm going to load another one called Rect. And this one wants the opposite corners of the rectangle. So where shall we put it? 100, 100 to 250. There it is. All right. Multicolor mode. This is just a random placement of randomly generated colors of the multicolor characters. MR on block 14. 14. I think I can do it from here, but I'm going to go to text mode before I load this, just in case something goes screwy. 14. I'll just load it and run it. MR. Another useless program. Multicolor graphics mode. This was a kaleidoscope, sort of a kaleidoscope program that was showed up on Atari Age that folks were doing in BASIC. So I just thought I'd try to port it to Forth, and it's sort of worked. So I'll load it as soon as this is through. MR. Cal, okay, block 15. All right, you can stop now. I think this was about 45 seconds long. It's just a little bit better than watching paint dry. I could just interrupt this. Let's see.
Hey, don't knock it.
What? Oh.
Don't knock it till you try.
Okay. Let's just interrupt this. Nice thing about Classic 99, there are a lot of things you can do more easily than on the iron, but you always have to try it on that. Otherwise, it's not all that useful. Okay, let's do. Where was I? Graphics mode. Cal. That's on block 15. Since I reset everything, I now have to go back and get that. Open that block file stuff. You can create block files at your whim. The information is in the manual, which is on the Atari. Right now, it's on the Atari Age website, and the FB4 block thread that I've started is still on the first page somewhere. It's in the first post of that. All right, so we're on what, 15? Did I say? Yeah, 15. All right. It must be a couple of screens. There we go. And that just puts it into graphics mode, and it's reflecting on both sides. You can see it's more or less symmetrical what's going on there. All right, next thing I want to talk about is I just want to briefly mention the file system. It's pretty much the same as the TI Forth file system, except that the lower level Forth support words are not available because they're now in pure assembly language code, and they're in the ROM. So you don't have, if you had ever written TI Forth programs that use those, you're going to have to redefine them. TI Forth, or rather FB Forth 2.0, also allows you to use your own fonts. There's a word called use FFL. And the fonts have to be, they're pretty much the same as what you have used in TI Writer, except that in TI Writer and almost every other program that uses fonts uses the first 6 bytes, I think it's 6 bytes, have information or not, mainly because I think they were saved using save, and it puts information about where to load that file into VRAM. MP4 doesn't need that. In fact, I designed it such that it starts on the first byte. So if you load a TI Writer formatted font, it's going to be gibberish. But I do have a font editor in which you can correct that if that's all you have available. But let's use one that's not that way. Let's see. I think Tony will like this one. All right, I didn't do that right. I separated. I put a space in the wrong place. Okay. Recognize that, Tony?
It's a nice font.
I think it's on all that you have over here, right? This is one of the fonts that actually came with TI Writer, I believe. The second, or is it the primary one? I don't know which one it is, but anyway, there it is. I can use, there's a variable called scrfnt, which is either 0 or non-zero. If it's 0, it's going to use the ROM-based font, and if it's 1, it's going to use whatever user font was loaded. Don't put anything other than a 0 in there unless you have loaded a user font, otherwise you'll get an error. Right now I'm going to put store 1 there and issue font, and it'll be back to where I was. All right. Let me go. One of the things I was going to take some time, but maybe I won't. We'll see how. Maybe later, privately. To display the font, you usually want something like that. There's no built-in function for that. I had written one. Started out with DSP FNT, and giving you would have to give it the ASCII limit. So if you wanted to display 0 to 127, then DSP font it would show you. But it uses emit. Now I can put in 65. That's the ASCII character. Capital A. And if I use emit, it will emit an A. Well, it also emits things like backspace and bell and line feed and carriage return. So if you put that font listed out, you're going to get the beep. You're not going to get a character. You're going to get the backspace. You're going to get the line feed. So it's kind of messed up. But I did write my own emit that would give you that inline, and so I can show you that offline. I want to show you the editor. The 4080 column editor can be run in both 40 column and 80 column modes. Let's load. Let's edit. Well, let's edit block 10, and you're in the editor. This uses this at the bottom. You see the menu. It uses the same functions as TI Forth did, and they're cryptic down here, so it can only be viewed as mnemonic. You're not likely to learn a whole lot. They're trying to, except DEL is obvious and INS, but some of the others are not quite so obvious. And you can use function 4 to go forward a screen. There's the display font that I was telling you about, and a second one, and the one that I wrote. And these are some of the others that we had loaded earlier. Alt F or function 9 gets you out of the editor. I'll show you what I was talking about with where. Block 10 is the circle program with an error in it. So I'm going to load it, and it's going to tell me that I have an error. Since I loaded this from disk, from a blocks file, I can just type where, and it will put me right to where the error is. Or was, it's the next character that it was about to read is where it places the cursor. And obviously this one should have been DRAD because that was what was defined up here. But DRRD, the interpreter doesn't know what it is, so it issues an error. So that feature is very useful there. Like I said, every other time when you get those two numbers on the stack, very often you don't remember putting them there, and so you conclude, as I recall someone did once, that your function did something and put those there. I remember the question, and so I think you were the one that posed it some time ago, and it's one that trips me up occasionally too, because when you come back from that error, you do not get the stack contents until after you hit the enter key. It issues abort, and that doesn't give you the depth, so that can be confusing. I'm going to load the 64 column editor. Go back to using F blocks and typing menu so I can find out where it is. If I load block 6, which is where it tells me I can load the 64 column editor, that's going to take quite a long time, several seconds. Wally, do you remember how long it used to take a TI-4 to load the 64 column editor? Yeah, I think it was actually more than a minute. What it had to do was to load the graphics primitives, which are now part of the ROM. So it does not have to load those. So it doesn't take that long now. But I have put it down here as a vsaved, a binary image. So I'm going to just simply load 32, which will do the vload of the next screen. So 32 load will bring right there. That's like 5 or 6 screens of text that it would have to have interpreted. Now I'm going to go into that and edit. Oh, let's just edit screen 2. Now this is using split mode and a 3x6 or something like that character font, which isn't terrible, but it is a little dicey on some of the characters. The 0 looks a little weird up there at the top, right there. The @ sign is a little strange. The asterisk, there's some that are hard to read, but it works every bit the same. You can go from one screen to the next. We'll get out of that. All right, font editor. This is a new one. This is something I wrote pretty much from scratch. You can simply type font ed, and you're in the font editor. You can move this plus. The white plus is your editing screen cursor. You use there are mnemonics down here, but that's strictly all they are. The space bar will toggle where this plus is. And so you can see what it will look like in text, because it's only 6 dots wide, what it'll look like in graphics mode, which is 8 dots wide, and it'll tell you what ASCII code you're at. You can load your own file. You can store whatever you've edited here. The shift F3 will shift the 6 bytes. So if you loaded a TI formatted format type file, font file, you can use shift to shift it to where you can actually read it. I should show you that. Let's see. To load a file, what's load file? Control D. Yeah. DSK1 dot. I'm not sure which one. Let's try Cara 1. Yeah, see there? I go from one character to another, I still can't read it. But you can get an idea what's going on. But if I hit shift, which is function 3, it shifts me into correct register. I can use function 5, which is high-low, right there, to shift 128 characters either way, so that it helps me navigate where I might want to store something. You can use a a copy, Control C, and I could go somewhere. Say I wanted to change that, I can paste it, and now 70 is a greater than sign. I can save these as either FB4 style type formatted font file or a TI writer type. But it does, you need to be able to read it here correctly before you save it as either one of those. Otherwise, you'll get a surprise. Let's see. I don't know that there's a whole lot more useful to talk about at this point. What all is in FB4 since FB4 1.0, rather 2.0. Since FB4 1.0, the conditional load, system synonyms, the assembly language skeleton, the GPL link, XML link, DSR link, VDP access, random number generators, .s, which we've used already extensively to non-destructively print the stack, defining words like ASM colon, and so forth, file IO, floating point math, 4080 column editor, bsave, graphics primitives, VDP mode changing words, font editor. Those are all now in ROM. You don't have to load them from disk, which gives you now pretty much all of the 24K high RAM from the 32K RAM for your program. I think there are only about 30 bytes at the low end and about 80 at the top, which are used that you don't have any control over. But everything else is pretty much available to you. The floating point is actually part of the fourth bank. It's in fact most of the fourth bank. It is taken from L10, the library that MDOS I used with permission from Tim Tesh and Barry Miller. I wrote that modified it for Mark Will's Turbo Force, and then when I got around to needing it myself, I modified it for FB4, and so now you don't have any video, any part of your screen trashed when you use sine, tangent, whatever, like you would in TI Fourth and a lot of other assembly language, because it uses part of the video display space for Scratchpad, but not with this. In fact, being able to use, loading the floating point library in TI Fourth and FB Fourth 1.0 for that matter takes a little time and space. So let's get out of the font editor. You exit it just like you do the text editors, and take one quick look at Circle, which was, what was that? Circle. Can't find, oh, there it is. Block 8. I'm actually surprised I'm remembering to change block files, because what I do at home even is I'll go for the screen. This block I know is there, but I've got the wrong block file and doesn't know what I'm talking about. I think this is in stuff, and what did I say, 8? Oh, okay, well, I've still got the 64 column editor up. But you can see, can you see the, okay. Right here, where I have S to F, SQR, there, the Q is pretty hard to tell. It's Q, and this is with the 64 column editor. And then F to S. I'm using floating point right there, right in the middle of everything else, without having had to have loaded it, because it's already in ROM. This is single to floating point, and I'm taking the square root of that and then because I only am caring about an integer part of it, I just take it from floating point to single precision 16 bits, and yeah, I think it rounds up, so it works, and it didn't take a lot more. It does take some time because floating point is 8 bytes, and it processes that, and that can take some time, so I don't want to write this whole thing in that. And when you do that in something like BASIC, you don't know what's going on, but it's going into floating point math, and that's why it's so slow. What the principal reason it's so slow. Anyway, I believe I'm going to end with another useless program, which I call Bounce. It's using graphics mode. In TI Forth and FB Forth 1.0, in 2.0 it takes 544 bytes of RAM. But in those others, you would have to have loaded the graphics primitives, and you're talking several K that you had to waste in order to get that program running. Anyway, block 16. And it's two pretty full screens, so it's going to take a few seconds. All right. And like I said, pretty useless. What's happening is I made the bottom look like it was rough. And when it gets to the bottom, it honks and randomly decides what direction to go. The other walls, it is reflecting off of it in the proper way. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Is there a way to define a startup word so when you're trying to load, you don't want those words defined like a startup?
Let me turn this off. It's distracting. Okay, what did you say?
Well, if you wrote an application, if you wrote a game and you wanted that game to auto start when Forth loads, can you define a startup word?
You can do that. The only thing that auto starts in FB Forth and I think Turbo Forth as well is block 1, the first block of F blocks. So you would have to define your own F blocks file and put whatever code you wanted to happen at auto start in block 1. If you'll look here at, let me start over, do a cold reset, and go into FB Forth. This information you see on the screen came from screen 1 of F blocks.
Okay.
You can see what happened here. It defined a word called menu, and this information right here it's looking for particular characters on this screen to tell whether it actually is in F blocks. So that's why this error thing. Anyway, you see here it's typing F blocks mod 27 oct 2014. That was what was on the title screen. So yes, whatever you put on this screen will auto run. So you can do it. You just don't have the option of naming your own load file, blocks file. Any other questions?
Ali, we have a question from, I believe it was Klaus in Austria, who's watching, along with Karsten and Hermano from Italy and a few more people. I wanted to see the cartridge one more time. So, let's see, we'll hold up the cartridge. It's got to go over this way. Can you see the cartridge? Yeah. Okay. It is in cartridge form to answer that question.
Anything else?
Okay, well, thank you, ladies. Cancer in July, and we miss him very much. If you've been here before, you know that he sat over there and he always brought donuts for the fair, for fair goers. And kind of in his memory, we brought some candy from Halloween. It didn't get eaten because of the storm last night. We didn't get very many kids. But please help yourself to some candy if you're going to.
The main thing that I'm on the outlook for to get new ideas. And I'm not real good at developing my own puzzles, but I scour different sources to find things that I might be able to implement. And I ran into a set of puzzles, information about a set of puzzles this summer. It was an app for the iPads or the iPhone platform. It was introduced at the Consumer Electronics Show in early this year. I think it was late January or either early February, sometime in that time frame. and I got a little bit of information about this, and it sounded interesting. And it was additionally interesting because I knew the father of the creator of these puzzles. He was a fellow that teaches at the college where I used to teach, but he was hired after I retired. But I still had met him and knew of him. But his son had developed this program, and I said, well, I'd like to maybe implement that on the TI if possible. It was hard getting real good information about how the puzzle worked because the details of that were built into the app, and so if you downloaded the app, you would have all that information. I don't have the device that I could download this to, but I emailed him and asked, well, I expressed my interest in my use of the TI and so on, that I'd be interested in implementing some of his puzzles, and asked if he'd give me permission to do so. And he gave me that permission, and so I set about, and I think for purposes of this, I may want to go to this size. The things are a little bit distorted here, but I think we may be able to see things a little bit better if I do this. And there we go. So I'll start this up. It will take a while because there's a lot of embedded assembly language in this, so it takes a while. While that's loading, this may not be the most appropriate time, but I want to thank a lot of people because without their assistance, this wouldn't be in existence. First of all, I want to thank Matt Sitch. He's the developer, the original creator of these puzzles, and there's his information. These puzzles are used with his permission. He sent me 9 screenshots, and so there are 9 different puzzles. This is a website where you can download this free app. As far as I know, it's free. There was further development of the program so that you could create your own puzzles and submit them and share them with your friends and so on Facebook. And so that's there if you're interested, but don't consider this as a sales field to encourage sales. It's just information that you can do with what you want. The name of the program is packed up in boxes, and I don't have space to set it up conveniently, and so I find it much more convenient to do this on my laptop. I have a list of people, so I need to pull that out or I'll forget somebody. In addition, I want to thank Fred Call for his program, which allows me to catalog the files on one of my disks in Classic 99, and more importantly, print out a printout of my code so I can use that and, if needed, recover something that I may have lost, and that happened to me in the development of this. And so without that, I would have been back at square one with my assembly language, and I might have just given up on this entirely. I'd also like to thank Mike Wright and Don O'Neill for, actually I skipped over something. First of all, Barry Craver. Barry Craver was the person that got me to the point where I understood how to link from Extended Basic to assembly language. It's very easy to go from Extended Basic to assembly, just do a call link. But getting back to Extended Basic is the hard part. That's the part that I wasn't quite sure about, and other things. Anything when I needed some advice or refreshing on how to do things in assembly language, I went to Barry Craver's information, and I got that from the site by Mike Wright. Also, there's information at Don O'Neill's site. So again, that was very significant to me. Another thing, I haven't made use of this yet because I don't have the files, but a fellow named Todd Kaplan wrote some code to allow me to store the assembly language program within the Extended Basic and then save that as an Extended Basic program which had the embedded assembly language. I had no idea of how to do that without that assistance, and I could follow directions for how to do that. So thank him. Next, I want to thank Cal for presenting me with the opportunity to display this at the Chicago meeting. Without this, I might have just sent it somewhere, put it on the internet somewhere, sent something to the Yahoo groups or someplace and say, I have this program if you're interested. Contact me. I think this does a much more better job of making this news available, and it's also more exciting to me to come to Chicago and demonstrate it than sit at home and send emails to people that may or may not respond. Also, I'd like to thank Barry Harmson and the other people in Europe who sponsor fairs. I went to Vienna about a month ago, and again, the same sort of thing in Europe. And also, lastly, I want to thank Walid for his TI Game Shelf. Once I get this completely finished for release, I will send it to him, and he can get it from there. Also, if anybody wants it, if you want to write down my email address and send me the information, I can also send the files to you in an email. Okay, so here's the title screen, nothing flashy. One of the things that I found interesting about the review that I did find said that it was nice to see a program, a game or puzzle type file implemented with what they called austere graphics. Very simple graphics. And I said, if there's one thing that the TI can do, it's austere graphics. It can do that very well, and just as well as anyone. So let's press a key here. Now again, on the smaller size screen, these are not distorted like this. They are square, but I think just for the benefit of seeing what we have, this enlargement probably does a better job. These are the 9 different puzzles. And it took a while. My original plan was not to have this menu driven, and I'm not going to get into why that was, but one day I sort of had a revelation. I said, this needs to be menu driven. That's the way TI programs are, and I somehow had forgotten that in the many years since I had really set about writing any sort of program. And as I was thinking about it, the first option was to just have 9 different lines, option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. And the problem with that in my mind was that each of these different puzzles Matt calls a map. And the reasoning behind that hopefully will make some sense after we take a look at these puzzles. Excuse me. But so I would have had a menu. Option 1, map 13. Option 2, map 14. Option 3, map 17. Map number 2, and that just seemed to be a little bit confusing, and it didn't really give you any idea of what you might be dealing with. And so I got the idea, I'll put up a small version so you can see what you're dealing with graphically as you make your choice. So the top 6 maps have 2 types of squares. They have gray squares. Now, I like to think of the gray squares as things that make these puzzles interesting. They make them non-trivial. In a sense, they also complicate your life. But if it was just trivial, then it wouldn't be a puzzle. And so you can't do anything with those. Let's just go to the first one here. And so we have 5 rows and 5 columns of squares. 4 of the squares are gray. Again, those are there permanently. You cannot do anything with them. They just, again, make your life a little bit harder. The red squares must all be flipped. Hence the name flip square. You must flip them, and when they are flipped, they turn green. Okay? You must flip all of them. Now, in a sense, this is sort of like a maze, except it's different from a maze that there's no observable starting point, and there's no observable ending point as you normally have in a maze. The first thing that you have to do is pick a red square as your starting point. And depending upon which red square you pick, you may or may not be able to complete the task of flipping all of the squares. In fact, as a hint, on this one, this is one of the easier ones because there are 5 different red squares that you could flip or could start at and succeed in flipping all the squares. So, first of all, you have to pick where you start. Now, without any additional knowledge, that's just a random guess, and that's not very satisfying. So there have to be some rules. What, after you pick that square, what can you do? Okay, once you pick a square, then you may move in any of the 4 directions, up, down, right, or left. But only if directly in that direction, adjacent to where you are, there is a red square. Okay? So, let's see if I can use this pointer. If we pick that square in row 3, column 2, there's a red square adjacent to it on the right. You could move right. There's one adjacent on the left. You could move left. There's one below it, so you can move down. But above it is the gray square that's all by itself. And so you could not move up if you started that red square. Okay, and so that's true for all of them. Now, not only will you, so if you pick a direction, then you will change the red square, which is immediately adjacent in that direction. But if there's another red square adjacent to that in the same direction, we'll flip that, and you'll keep flipping red squares until you hit the edge of the puzzle or you hit a non-red square. And so that's how you go about flipping the squares. So you can, with those rules in mind, then you may be able to puzzle out where do I want to start and how do I want to proceed. Now, if you want to see a demonstration, does somebody want to volunteer and see if they can flip all of these squares following those rules? Anybody? Okay, where do you want to start? What row and column?
Row 3.
Row 3.
4.
Column 4. Done.
Down.
Down. Ooh, I'm sorry. I picked the down arrow, so let's go here. You said row 3, column 4. Okay, so down is X. Now, to do this initially, I used the except that to use the checking for input. I think I want to change that and do it with just, so it's just a single key press. So it happens. But now you already have a problem. You already have a
I
problem.
thought it went one at a time.
No.
Okay,
No.
I quit.
Well, it's very easy to, like I like to say, paint yourself in a corner. It's like painting yourself in a corner. Okay? So as long as there's a red square continuing in the direction, you will go until you either hit the edge of the puzzle or a gray square. Now, to demonstrate that this is not a very good path, and this is no better or worse, but let's see. Oh, that's going to. Should be sitting down and doing this, so I'm looking at the keyboard rather than trying to talk. Again, there's about 10 pages of assembly language here, so it takes a while to load that in. But I just want to, let's do that over. Row 3, row 4. What am I doing? 3, 4. Now, we went down, Now if we go right, again, that's one of the quickest ways to find that you did not succeed. You got to the point where now there are no red squares adjacent to where you are, and so there's no hope of finishing this. So the message that Matt gave when you don't succeed is you flipped out. And so now we can restart, and we're back. Does anybody else want to try?
Row 3, column 2.
Row 3, column 2.
And you're going to go left to column 1.
Okay, that's D.
Oh,
The other left.
That's right.
that you went right.
The other left.
Yeah. And
Okay. I'm sorry.
you went 3 times. Does it automatically advance me on this?
Yeah. It's not just one all the time.
I made the same mistake.
Yeah.
3.
All right.
One block.
Okay, you want to go left, huh?
Yes. Then you should go. And this. You shall go up. Then you shall go right.
Oh, I typed out 3, 2.
S.
D. At that point, I almost does myself. So I would not then go X. Oh, now this too. S. E. D. And X. Or excuse me, E. And this is the last 2. But that just told me that something.
Yeah, there are 16 different places you can start where there's no possible chance of solving. Anybody else want to try?
We can ask, here's someone. Let's see. Hermano from Italy would like to play, I think.
Hi, Arano.
Okay. Karsten in Denmark says row 1, column 2.
Row 1, column 2.
I think this is probably the first time we've ever played this game, any game, internationally. Okay, this takes us, there's a time lag here between what is said here, what goes out on the air, and then what comes back. And that's, okay, go left. Okay. I'll tell you when that shows up.
At this point, there's not much question about what you can do. There's only one red square. We'll wait to see. We'll rush things.
Okay, we're waiting. Okay. It just showed up, so it will type probably go down in as much as you can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
We'll wait for Carson to give us direction.
Yeah, that one I already know. Do it now.
And the next move after that, and the next move after that, and the next move after
Why
that.
not always end on that one? Fill solution.
At this point, every move from here on out is foregone conclusion.
Right.
There's only one
You have to
option.
make it. You have no choice. Just because of the fact that you can use the entire road. That's not.
It says go down, of course.
Good choice.
Since it's the only one, it's got to be the best one also.
Tellen we niet zal.
So it's a matter of your initial choice of red square and then where you move from there.
Okay.
From here, there are only two choices. One of them is good and the other one is pretty bad.
Now the next one should be kind of interesting. The next move. If it goes all the way to the end. Oh, I see. You can still win. Oh, let's see. The right, of course. Okay.
The first online interactive game on TI.
The next one will have to be go up.
Every move from now on is limited.
Yeah.
There's only one move.
Only one choice for the rest, it says.
Yeah.
Only one choice, okay, so up you go. And then I guess we can
Oh,
just finish the
I
puzzle.
pressed R again instead of
Yeah.
But we also, well, let's just redo it anyway. Row 1, column 2.
It says up, left, right, left, down, yeah, okay. It's got all of them. There we go.
Okay, so let's go back to the menu. And so there are 5 other puzzles for your puzzlement. At least one of them, I think 2 of them, among the first 6, have only one place where you can start, and there's only one successful path. Now, towards the bottom of the screen, you can see puzzle 7, 8, and 9 have some different colored squares. Now, in 7 and 8, we have squares that are orange. Actually, in the TI color scheme, I used dark yellow. That's the closest I had. I didn't have the full palette that's available on a Mac or PC. The orange squares, you have to flip twice, or you have to pass through them twice. The first time you pass through them, it changes from orange to red. Then it becomes just another red square that has to be dealt with in the normal fashion. Okay? Now, the last puzzle, at first blush, would look like it's impossible.
And it is.
No, it's not, because it has this purple square, which has a property that allows this to be saved. The purple square, when you move on to it, will turn green. It will flip and become green, but by some means that I don't understand. All I know is what Matt told me. It flips you over or jumps you over the square continuing in that direction, as long as after you jumped over the next square, you land on a red square. Okay? Quite complicated, but if you keep that in mind, as you move to the purple square, it will turn green, and then it will continue going in that direction, jumping over the following square and landing on the square past that one, as long as it is red. If it's any other color, you're out of luck. It'll just turn red. And so if you see a purple square, you know that you need to use that feature to jump over an adjacent square to get somewhere where you might not be able to get to otherwise. And that's just a foregone conclusion, at least for this one example. For other things, I have no idea. But I guess that is it. Now, one thing I might ask at this point, I'm going to make a statement and see what sort of agreement I get. Sprites are only useful if your program involves some object that moves during the execution. How many people agree with that? Okay, if you don't agree with that, give me a reason.
Way back when, in one of the earlier fairs, Barry Traver gave a demo of his pony games. And in it, he had a 5x5 grid of squares with a dot in the middle. And whatever square you selected, you want to move that dot from one to another, it would move. And he says, well, now how do you do this? You only have so many sprites available. So what he said the program did was it would draw a sprite on top of one of the existing symbols in that square you picked. Delete the symbol underneath. Move the sprite to the other square. Delete that symbol and delete the sprite. So you could actually use it for pasting something and use it to easily change the symbol. It would appear to move, but it didn't actually move.
Does anybody see any sprites on this screen?
Yeah. Numbers.
The numbers. The numbers are all sprites. Any other sprites? The dark yellow or orange and the purple squares, those are sprites. Without sprites, I would have had to use 2 more character sets to divide just that one character for those squares. And also, the when I implement 7, 8, and 9 full size, those squares are sprites. And underneath them are red squares. So I can check to see if it's a red square. It may appear to be an orange square, but it's a red square underneath, so I can move it. So there are reasons for using sprites that don't require that any motion at all be necessary. But in terms of the numbers, the giveaway is that in this area, for example here, this is a single character. The top row and the right-hand edge are white, 1 pixel wide, 7 by 7 red, and then the black sprite on top of it. So I have 3 different colors in the area of one character on the screen, which is not easy to achieve otherwise. What? Yeah, the 5 obviously is, unless everything else is off, then this is some strange conglomeration of characters, which would be much too difficult. It's much easier to use sprites. The remaining step that I have to take is to move the assembly language into the extended basic program and save it as one file rather than have the 2 files and loading it in from extended basic. And I don't have the files that I need to do that. It's a program called AL Save and AL Load M that Barry Traver provided. And if anyone has easy access to those things, I'd appreciate it if they still work on getting that. Otherwise, I thought I had these, but once I get that done, I may do a little bit more tweaking, getting it so that you press the S key and it moves left and so on without having to do enter. But I will send it to Waleed, and you can put it up on the TI game shelf, or again, if you want to email me, I'd be happy to send it to you.
Or if you have games, transfer those from PC format to a TI, I can input.
Excuse me?
If you have the games to transfer the programs you want to Barry Traver from a PC format to TI, I can input.
I need them in a format that I can use on the PC. I have them somewhere in boxes at home for the TI. I'm not doing any programming on the TI. And I looked yesterday to try and find if I could get it from the FTP site, Don O'Neill, and things are operating differently on my new Windows 8 machine than they did on my old XP, which I lost not lost physically, but don't have access to or doesn't function anymore. I think back then I could go to the FTP site and actually pick out individual files and download them, and I may have done that, and they may be somewhere on the hard drive of that machine which still is active, but I don't have easy access to that. If anyone could help in that regard, I'd appreciate it. I'll keep trying to do it on my own also. And I think that's about all. And I will continue to, I have other puzzles that I want to implement, and I'll hopefully have at least one, if not more, next year at this time. Sorry, that's the only kind of program that really interests me. If you have something else that you might want to suggest, I might consider it, but I really like to work with puzzles, particularly things where if I solve it today, fine, but I can come back to it in 3 months and deal with it, and it's almost as hard as when I did it today. It's not just a trivial thing where once you solve it, you know how to do it the next time, even though it's sometime in the future. I found a number of such puzzles, and I'll be actively working on those. Thank you.
For sale here.
Yes, sir.
So this is something that if you haven't seen this before, you don't want to see it, you're going to want to buy it. Come on up and join us. Everybody take a seat.
The combination GROM and ROM. It's got 120K of GROM and 512K of ROM, so you can fit a lot of stuff on it. Let's plug it in. See if we can get it to come up. It'll take that a while. It's looking for it. There we go. When you plug in the cartridge and turn on the console, which you have to do in that order, you can't plug this cartridge into a console that's turned on because you'll just get a lot of gobbledygook. It automatically starts up with this menu, which is, you can see there's 26 things on it. This is the first time in a while an extended basic has been available on a cartridge that somebody can actually build on their own, because it's just recently been made available that you can have a cartridge with ROM on it, which is necessarily for extended basic. So if you chose A, you would get extended basic version 2.7, which is an outgrowth of all the other versions of extended basic I've released, back to one I did on the PGram Utilities disk, which was called XP Patch back in the early 90s, and I just have kept adding and adding things to it. There's a bunch of different commands. You can do a call beep, which is resident at beeps. You can honk, and so on and so forth. Included in the cartridge is Barry Travers XXB, which if you do a call XXB, you see it takes a second, and it has just loaded the disk of Barry Travers extended basic version 1.5, so all of those commands are available. They're available as call links because they're loaded into low memory. all link. We'll do the same thing we did before. Spelled it wrong. Call link B. I haven't used these in a while.
You need capitalization or anything?
I might. Let's try that.
So simple.
But I don't want to get stuck on this one part of the cartridge because it's just one little area of it. You can read the docs and find out all the different things Extended Basic version 2.7 does. There is a copy of the docs over on my table, and there's a copy on the Atari Age website and on the non-dash Yahoo group. Okay, if you press function 7, you'll get the credits, so you know where it came from. And my contact information is on there in case you need to get a hold of me if you're having some kind of problem with it. Press the space bar to quit. There's one hidden key press on the cartridge. Some people know where it is. When you press it, you get a surprise.
Hey, Bert. Hey, Aaron. Hey, I was wondering if you could do me a big favor. Sure, anyway. Well, I was wondering if you would pretend that you're angry for me.
Enough?
I shall pretend that I'm angry for you. Mm-hmm. You see, I was just, because you're really just great at getting angry.
That's the old, I'm going to turn it off because it's going to start again. That's the old Ernie and Bert demo from years ago. Also, an Extended Basic program, thanks to Harry Wilhelm for helping me figure out how to load it. That's it for this cartridge. I do have a bunch of these assembled and for sale for $40. $40 just covers the parts involved. Some brand new labels, vinyl labels were ordered for them. Authentic looking TI label. Cartridge cases are reused, of course. We don't have any new ones yet.
Working on that.
They're working on that over there. Any questions on this one? No? Okay, we'll move on. I have a bunch of games cartridges, which are just ROM cartridges. They use the 512K ROM board. I do have some of the EEPROMs for this board for sale for $5 each. You need to buy yourself a board and get I do have some shells, and Jim Fetzner has some labels for 4 of the 5 game cartridges. What the game cartridges do are they're multi-games cartridges with a menu. See, there's quite a few games fit on one cartridge in 512K. I crammed as many onto each cartridge as I could. Some games are bigger than others, so some cartridges have more games than others. Same as with Extended Basic. You pick it off the menu, and you're there. And I'm not going to play any of these.
Chicken.
But they all do work. They've been tested, and a bunch of people have made them already, and people that can burn EEPROMs make their own cartridges. All right, that's game card 1. Game card 2, they're all pretty much the same. I don't know if this is good. No. You do have to turn the computer off when you put one of these cartridges in, so it starts up in the right place. If you just put the cartridge in, it's not going to start up in the right spot or bank. This cartridge has 2 pages of menus. You move back and forth by pressing the space bar. Finally let me go. There's your educational game cartridge menu. I have the EEPROMs for these if you want to make one. Want to build your own. One more left. I don't know if there's going to be. Ignore the editor assembler on here. I actually took a 512K card and I soldered an editor assembler DROM into it. So it would be difficult to make one of these. The ones you're going to get, you would just have two for menu. You wouldn't have the editor assembler in. Now this one, I don't know how much caller would be for it. It's most of the programs that are on the extended basic version 2.7 card, only without extended basic. So you miss out a little bit, but I did try to include an editor and a formatter, you know, for those people that are programming. And they do load right up, same as everything else. Quit, and it takes you back to your home menu. And we do have a couple other tidbits that aren't going to be distributed yet. We're still trying to find enough people to make the chips and cartridges to do it. One is RXB. Rich has wanted RXB on a cartridge for a number of years. With the new Ubercom cartridges, you can do it. There it is. Everybody is familiar with it. RXB, which I'm sure most of you are. You have it. And there's no disk, so that's just going to go searching forever. Two more demos are very similar to Extended Basic 2.7, but don't have as many things on them. Made one and replaced Extended Basic 2.7 with Super Extended Basic for those people that use that. I really don't know any of the commands in there. I'm not real familiar with it, but I do know it works. And it doesn't have as many games. It only has 6 games on this one. And the last one I have should come up any second. There we go. There we go. Pretty much same thing. There's no games on this, but it does have Expanded Basic 3.0 by Winfried Winkler. Don't know a whole lot about that, other than there are a lot of things that were fixed. It's looking for DSK1 load, which isn't there, so.
Winkler's Extended Basic 3 corrects a number of errors in the mathematical that we went to OTI that nobody had tested some of the part of the
There you go.
They
Yes.
tend to operate in reverse to what they're supposed to in some cases.
Right.
That explains things.
Yeah. It explained a lot, considering that one of the earliest programs I tried to write that a friend of mine was trying to use those routines, block positioning in a 3D array, and it was sending us off exactly the opposite direction where it should have, and the math was right, and we did it on pencil and paper, but yeah, I did it backwards.
And the reason that hasn't been available on a cartridge or for a lot of different Gram devices is because it uses 3 banks of ROM. Most Extended Basics use 2. So you can't load it into a Gram cracker or a pgram. You can't load it in the HSP GPL or the Mechatronic Gram card if you have one of those.
It will also work with these 5 super modules.
There you go. And we may be seeing some of those shortly. Well, that's about all I have. Questions?
I bought a module Extended Basic 2.7.
Correct.
How do I get the manual?
The manual is online. It's in the Yahoo group.
Yeah.
The non-dash Yahoo group, the one without the dash in the URL address, or
Yeah, I know there are 2. So.
it's also on Atari Age. Or if you
Okay.
give me your email address before we break up, I will email it to
It's
you.
on Diary Agent.
Oh, I can send it to Barry.
Okay.
That's okay, I'll find
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say, I've known Barry since 1986.
Yeah, I have a couple of related questions. On utility cartridges on the menu, one had a program called Compact Flash HDXS. The other one had a program called Compact Flash 2000. What do those two programs do?
I'm not sure. They do have something to do with the compact flash unit.
What program did he say?
Compact Flash HDXS was on the first utilities cartridge. And the second cartridge was something called Compact Flash 2000.
Those programs are from Fred Carl.
Right.
You will have to go to his website. His website has a new URL. It's now ti99geek.nl.
The HDXS has to do with the modified RS-232 card that you connect to your PC, and it uses your PC as a hard drive.
And the compact flash part of it, that's the version that he made work with the CF7s and also with the Nano DVD.
Actually, what the programs on Compact Flash?
Well, what it does is it allows you to take someone who has a compact flash using the CF7 Plus, plug that into the side of their TI, using its RS-232 port or its parallel port, depending which version you happen to have, connecting onto the PC using the HDX program, and pulling data off of there, pulling it over to your compact flash card.
Okay.
It works completely. There's two versions.
Okay, okay,
Serial
that's
and parallel.
You said TI-91.
Other questions?
I'll try to highlight.
Have you tried like the unreleased ones yet, like Kinetics or Turn Control or Fusion, any of those?
ET games are on there, don't they?
Yeah, you know the Disney unreleased ones.
Send them to me. I'll put them on another one.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody has any other games that aren't, or cartridges? Some cartridges can't be duplicated on the ROM cards alone. You would need the UberGROM card just because they're too big, too much ROM and ROM. So you need to put them on an UberGROM card. But if anybody has any requests, I've used up the library of stuff I have, so you need to send the actual games to me. If they're in EA5 format, send me a bunch of them and we can make another cartridge. I just finished the last game cartridge this week because somebody sent me a bunch of files. So it's up to everybody else to send me stuff and I'll put on a cartridge for you.
And now comes something weird. I have to say thank you,
Oh, thank you.
because you have made a use case for every single cartridge board that I have designed.
Thanks, Jim. That it? And thank you.
You're not racing, you're hunting on the road, and everything is allowed. You can shoot your
Now you
opponents.
can shoot it. See.
You can shoot your opponents, drive them on the road, but you need fuel.
All right, James, you try it now.
Now is James the one who will kill his opponents. There he goes. Shoot the boss. Oh, not in the grass. There you go.
Get the violin. Yeah. No.
If your fuel goes down,
Can we put more?
your speed is so up, then
Is there more volume?
Yeah.
I think I know which one it is. Why are you keeping a
Okay, we go to the next game.
Next game.
That was the first game that
Then let's go to a second.
Rasmus Mouseguard made. And that one is called Titanium.
Next is Scramble, actually.
And Barry, if I had more time yesterday, I would have worked a ROM for Saber Wolf
Yeah.
and brought that today. But
Yeah, that's new. Same. But I had my body was. Shoot.
Always shoot the asteroids. Do not ever, not shoot the asteroids.
Can I try? Yeah.
You have to go next to the light. Next, I wish it was TI.
And so on, and so on. The trick in this game is the horizontal scrolling of the background and the way.
So you were playing the game on your laptop the whole way across, huh?
Not at all. Not at all.
Next game.
Okay, we do the next game. This was Titanium, and now we go.
Next one is TI Scramble.
Scramble. Very good.
Yep. They copied some. They copied another game company. They copied it.
Really?
Yeah, really. It's
I
Japanese.
didn't know that.
Yeah, Scramble, the original Scramble.
Yeah.
It's really Japanese.
He knows.
He knows.
He's my game freak.
I agree.
Okay. Can you beat those guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
150 points.
Okay.
Okay.
Flush.
Let's start.
Flush the button.
Maybe I'm.
Push start button.
Oh, player one.
That's you, dude.
Shoot.
Ready to start.
I died.
Hey, be careful. There are women and children aboard. Watch it, watch
You got to go up before you hit the rocks, dude.
Oh my goodness. Player one, game over. Player two.
it. Player two, that's me.
Okay. Oh my
Ready to start.
goodness. What is
Oh, I'm dead. I'm dead again. You see that part of the background is related to parsec. Number one has to play. Who's number one? Me?
It's actually the second conversion of Scramble available for one of the TI systems.
Oh, really?
Which one is the first?
Scramble from the Tommy Tudor, which was translated for the Geneve by Barry Boone.
Okay. No. What there?
Ready to start.
Yes.
Right.
careful. Lower, 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 lower.
Where?
No, no, you're still on. Down, down, down.
I don't.
You forgot to shoot, you know. Oh, good.
Now, why are they keeping a TV that's cracked?
It's an old one.
Yeah.
Push the red button.
Ready? All right.
Down.
When you explode last one.
Very, you all done?
Yep, all done.
All done? Okay, thank you. Well done, guys. Well done. $15 out of our account each month for service charge. I don't know what kind of service they thought they were giving us, but at any rate, they took all our money over a period of time. So all of the contributions and all of the donations that have been made and all of the dues that have been paid today are going to go to providing another fair for next year. That is the only source of our money right now. We no longer run the concession stand that brought in several $100s each year. We ran out of people to run the concession stand. We all got tired. We all got old. Some of us died. At any rate, we no longer do that. So our only source of revenue these days, we don't charge for tables. We don't charge entrance or anything anymore. Our only source of revenue is what you guys generously reach in your pocket and give us, and we thank you very much. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to John Gidry, who has been doing some marvelous things with 3D, et cetera, boards, et cetera. Tell them about it, John.
Sure. And actually, Waleed, where's your cartridge at? I was gonna show it as part of the backstory. I'm John Gidry, and like I said, I got corralled, so I don't have a formal PowerPoint presentation or anything. But way back when I started making the original 16 and 64K cartridge boards before I handed off everything to Jim back there, we were looking around for cartridges, cartridge cases for all these boards. Other than our only source was a whole bunch of old TI Invaders cartridges or other things that we got from like Mike Dudek or another vendor. So I happen to have some of these old, and I don't know if you can see that, peach-colored cartridge shells. And these are kind of a rare animal. There's no stamp. I mean, there's no date codes or anything in the bottom of them. Richard Bell has like either all tops or all bottoms or something like that from, I think, the old Secure inventory. But he didn't have the second half. So I'm like, crud. We have all these cartridges that we want to make, and we're having to steal cartridge cases off of perfectly good cartridges. So wouldn't it be cool if we could make a new cartridge case? So I started talking to a person from our local community college, and I gave him a shell, gave him one of these empty shells, and said, hey, this is awesome. Looking at your 3D printer and everything, but can you do anything? Can we make some of this with 3D printing? This is something we can do. And he looks at me and he's like, yeah. He's kind of the professor is kind of a guy of little words, and just says yes or no, and just kind of looks at you funny if you ask him something that doesn't fit with one of those two answers. But so he modeled one of them, and you can see like the little spring-loaded thing in the middle, which we really didn't need, but he he just threw that up real quick in Inventor, AutoCAD Inventor. So what I decided to do the next semester is I went ahead and I audited a class at the community college. I paid the money to audit the class, and I got full access to the 3D printer for a whole semester. So what I got a chance to do was I got a chance with a micrometer, and I have several different iterations of this cartridge board here. But I use this program that I have up on the screen right now called Inventor. And as you can see, I mean, Inventor lets you do all kind of cool, crazy stuff as far as modeling the cartridge. And so let's see here. So you actually get to dimension everything. And that's why I said I use the micrometer and stuff in conjunction with this to dimension everything. And here's the bottom part. And you notice there's 3 screw holes down here. There's a story behind that versus the way that it's always been. So what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this this original. Oh, my lens, that's huge. So I'm going to copy this original cartridge here with the little tabs in the bottom. And so I printed one out. And besides making the top back here way through thick, I figured out something interesting. The little pieces on the 3D printer just fell off. The little bitty tabs on there. So there was no way that it was going to snap together and stay put. You know, yeah, I had a screw hole at the bottom, but these 2 tabs weren't going to go anywhere. So, okay, fine. You know, it took 2 days to print this. It took another 2 hours to get all the support material, pry all the support material out of it, because it prints support material along with this to keep it in one place while it's printing it. So what I did for the second one, I'm like, okay, you know, that's it. Let's just make 3 screw holes. So the second one, you know, made 3 screw holes, and remember I told you about the support material. These little raised standoffs in here where the screws came out of, oh, right behind here in the edge of the case, that's not a very fun place to get support material out of. So I'm like, okay. And so the final prototype, and I can pass this around if anybody wants to take a look at it. The final prototype, what I wound up doing is something a little different. You notice there's no screw mount; it is one solid piece.
Yeah.
Decided to do that instead, and that's actually, I call that version 2.5. And compared to the ones we did last year here, he kind of did these like real quick. You know, and the color doesn't mean anything. It's just whatever PLA material was in the printer at the time. But he just did those real quick. They really didn't line up or anything. I brought them to the, I think, was it last year I brought them, Hal, to the TI Fair? Was it the year before? Year before last year? Okay, so yeah, this says October 2013. So probably last year. So they didn't. You know, I actually have it pretty exact. So this is actually a PDF here, and I don't know why Adobe insists on putting this stupid toolbar over to the right side, but you can see that I have I printed out this PDF right here that gives you all kind of cool cross-section parts of the cartridge. So if you ever want to see what a cartridge looks like if you cut it right down the middle in half, that's what it looks like inside. You know, or at the bottom down here, I wanted to cut off the top and the front and the back. So the one on the top, I cut off the front faceplate, and that's what it kind of looks like coming in from the front. And I primarily did that to ensure that the parts fit together correctly. I had pretty much measured everything and made sure that that it fit. But it was kind of cool that the program automatically, I made something called an assembly, which I gave it the 2 parts and I gave it anchor points and it put it together. And as you can see, it fit exactly, which was, you know, that was kind of cool validation that I did the work correctly. But, you know, I obviously, you know, kind of messed up a little bit on a few of these prototypes until I got to that point. But the files and such, the files and these drawings and such, I have an archive of everything. And I even have something called the STL file, which is what you use if you want to send it to a 3D printer. Jim Fetzner is volunteering to play around with molding and other stuff, and I can let him speak out around to what he wants to do. But I've sent him all these files as well. Along with the cartridge boards lately, my hobby time for sponsoring projects and stuff has kind of gotten limited, so I've kind of moved into the I'll invent it role and see if anybody wants to pick it up and do something with it. So, but yeah, just wanted to spend 10 minutes and show everybody these, and you know, like I said, the files are on Atari Age. I have the archive files out there, and anybody can download them. You can send the STL files directly to a 3D printer, print one yourself, see how it works. The Illustrator, not the Illustrator, the Inventor files are there as well, so you can load it into Inventor if you have it. It's always good for being a student because you get the Inventor license for like 2 or 3 years for free. So otherwise, this is a very expensive product for design. So if you know somebody that's a student, they can load it in their system for you. But yeah, you have any questions or anything about any of this, or? Okay.
How much would it cost the average person to take these files to a 3D printing place and get it one cartridge shell made?
Right now, it's rather expensive. If you went to a commercial place like Shapeways, I think, Jim, it was what, $50
For each half.
for each half.
Wow.
But when I pass this around, you notice how rough it looks. The commercial places are actually a lot better with, you know, fine grain. They're using really high-end machines. The machine I printed this on at the community college was a high-end machine like 4 or 5 years ago. But you know, nowadays they keep coming out with better and better machines, and I'm assuming the price is just going to keep dropping, or people with $200 or $300 printers at home will start being able to print them out. Yeah.
I want to talk to you a little later about, I thought of a different way to fix the one issue that we've identified.
Oh yeah, and there's one issue. The one issue that we had with this particular printer was that, remember I said the little small thin things break off? Well, there's one small thin thing at the top of the cartridge right here, at the top of the slot, that, you know, sometimes it falls off or has problems. So I think what was it, when you were cleaning it out, you had that problem with it coming off, or?
It didn't come all the way off, but one end is separate.
One end is separate? Yeah. So that's.
I'm thinking about it tonight, and I figured out how to fix it, and I'll show you.
Yeah, and that's part of the 3D printing process. These are all prototypes. Nothing's production ready. You know, Jim was talking about potentially taking a good one once we got it all printed out and everything, and making a mold out of it so that we have something really nice to duplicate once we get the design down pat. Especially if you want 3 screws instead of clasps. So.
You alluded to it. I know we mentioned it, or we talked about it earlier. Home Depot is going to be selling, if not already, and actually have on the website, they're called the Maker Bots.
Yeah, Maker Bots.
The Dremel 3D Idea Builder kits. The cheapest that they have online right now is $1,000, but there was another article I read, and I'll try to find it, put it up on Atari Age. They were talking about $300 to $500 range for the low ends, at least to give people a chance to prototype these things before they take them to the final designs.
Yeah, cubes.
So yeah, this company right here raised $3.5 million on Kickstarter for this little micro 3D printer.
Yeah.
And they were going for $300. So, you know, auto leveling, everything. I mean, let's see here. Where's the one that I had? Yeah, I was in the $299 tier on this. It comes with 1 filament spool, but it can print. What is it? Yeah, and the spools fit right at the bottom. See, somebody was asking me about that, right? So yeah, they're starting to get, and they're going to have their own software that you can find stuff, you know, search for stuff to print and everything, and it's gonna keep getting better and better and better, you know, as time goes on. I mean, just look at the news releases in the last week where HP said they were going to start releasing selling 3D printers and stuff. So you're just gonna keep maturing, keep getting better. So it's right now it's definitely a niche hobbyist type of thing. Any other questions?
John, I had a question about your statement. One of the places we're going to be passing tonight on the infamous pub crawl is the local 3D printing store. And they've quoted us a price a lot less than $50 to print one of these cases, provided we supply them with the file. They have to do it themselves, scan the whole thing, then it becomes expensive. If you give them a file, because they're new in business, because they're soliciting business, they're doing some deals. They've also got a lot of professional equipment. They can print something the size of that table in one of their printers. It's a huge thing. They do a lot of work right now for car buffs who need to replicate pieces that they can't get for older automobiles, especially vintage cars. They're doing a lot of that right now. They do some very intricate work. We'll be able to see they've got some of the printers are set up in the windows. So as we're walking down the street, we'll be able to watch some of the things actually being printed. If they're still open, we can stop in. It's kind of interesting. John and I went in there and were amazed at some of the things they could do. It's run by a bunch of young guys who are pretty enthusiastic about what they're doing. They're pretty talented, from what I can see.
So yeah, this thing is small. I mean, look at the specs on it. It's only a couple pounds. So yeah, Hal, I can all the files zipped up are only like 5 meg, so that'd be no problem. And I've got them on Atari Age, but I can post them again if people can't find them, or reply to the thread, or put them on the TI group too.
If you
probably.
give us a copy today, yeah, that would be a big help. We can take it in.
Just give me a USB key and I can
get a quote on direct quote for anybody that wants one of these things.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I'd be curious how a commercial printer works with that thing separating.
But you'll get a lot smoother surface on the input file, which is exactly what I want before I try to make a good mold.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Are there any other plans to make items for the TI-99?
There's other people that have made cases for like the nano PEV and stuff on Atari Age and stuff that I've seen. I don't plan on I don't plan on making anything else anytime
I don't know where I saw that. The people who want to make the old how do you call it? The expansion system for the TI-99/8 system. The hex bus system. The hex bus system.
Yeah, they want to make the case for the hex bus to use it for sidecar
So I can do it for like to transplant your speech synthesizer or something into.
Or you can't transplant a regular speech synthesizer into that case. It's actually wider than the standard speech case. But that said, it is a perfect size to make a really small, useful board that can plug onto the side of the box. I've got one empty hex bus case, which I will probably use to try to make a thing as well.
And Jim and I have talked about all kind of, just FYI, all kind of other hardware projects which may or may not reach fruition. Like sidecar peripherals, diagnostic stuff. That has access to all the pins.
Albatrossic video. Now the VLC. Yeah, it always comes up with the movie.
I couldn't tell you how many times at the order. Years past.
I thought you might have had the Windows Media Player.
Oh, I did.
Why don't you open the Windows Media Player and download after that? No. We're going to get this available. I have used it.
I
but don't know why
included
it's
the
doing that.
VLC media player. I'm reluctant to just install software on somebody else's. Okay, now could I?
The finger ought to just be a single click.
Yeah, I can hear the drive. I got a lot of so much grip chair.
That's what I want to do.
Did you see that little computer?
Yeah, I'd go back and see now that I've got a video.
The little never saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that should be. Oh, that's
They're all around.
okay. That's the wrong. If you want to look at data,
Here, that's what I was working They made some good stuff. I'm not an exit then.
oh, you don't have to be on point where everybody wants to.
Well, let's go back to the
They never made anything like a watch or anything like that. They didn't even want, they wouldn't let us use the word TIers. We'll call ourselves TIers. Most people like work on TI or TIers. And it is okay.
Yeah.
Yes, as well as Play-Doh and as well as Tiger Cub, there's one disc that has no issues. And I don't know which ones they are. They may have actually been fixed on this collection. We have, starting alphabetically here, Vittori, with this README. Mr. Vittori has a cartridge collection pack, and he says he was not able to include the PDF manuals because of site owns the copyright on them. So in this cartridges, no manuals, you have the following cartridges: demo, disc utilities, education, management, civic management. Okay, these are all the discs for 99 Home Century, Accounting Assistant. Some of these appear to be in French or Italian. Personal real estate, personal record keeping.
It's don't be the French.
Okay, and these are his disc collections, action, in binary format. They're not disc files, so you'd have to use these with an emulator, which I'm not familiar with, on how to use binary files on any emulator. Sorry, I stepped up too high. So that's Vittori. Then we have the cartridge manipulator. We have dimensions. In 2008, I had a disc I released that had a whole bunch of mathematical imagery by Jos Leys, who's an engineer in Belgium. And he has gotten really into computer imagery and of mathematical formulas. So his website's very highly recommended. Like a two-pane Midnight Commander style file manager for the compact flash or the nano PEB. This is pretty much the only critter you can use, I found, with the compact flash card, because any other program
we'll see that the compact flash card is not formatted, which is not true. So in this you have the two panes. You have the source and the destination. You can go through your disk and find the .dsk files you have. And that's what you use for the compact flash. The other one is the, as I've shown people here today, the floppy emulator that fits in a P box. It's not a standalone. It uses an SD card. And this program converts .dsk files into the .hfe files that the floppy emulator uses. Now, one advantage of the floppy emulator is any disk manager can manipulate the files on it. The floppy emulator can also support levels of directories on it. With the compact flash, you've got the one directory. I think it has a 256 file limit. Although I think you can change partitions if you've got an SD compact flash card formatted into multiple partitions. You can go from partition to partition. So this one, the one I use a lot, is the batch converter, where it comes up what source are the .dsk files in, and what directory do I want to put the .hfe files in. One artifact of this, using the floppy emulator and using the program there, I'll show you in a moment here, is this probably is going to come up right now. Here, let's use a different program to open up this text file. Is the floppy emulator puts an artifact on the file. This will get the formatting right. Okay, it's right here is the Unix command, because I was using Linux. How to batch file and rename TI disk files is you start out with the file name .dsk, and when you run the floppy emulator, it turns the dot into an underline, and then it adds .hfe at the end. And I wanted to rename these files to just .hfe. Well, as you can see, I had a lot of Tiger Cub files, I had a lot of Chicago Faire files, I had all the Plato files, and I didn't want to go through and do that one at a time. My favorite computer is a Linux box rather than doing this in Windows. So I have the command here in Unix on how to delete the underlined disk and go to it. And as I was reading the online tutorials, they were rather nice because they said step by step what each thing did. Where the -V means go for post, display on the screen what you're doing. Then /S means to start the command switch, an old for a new. Then the next one, the backslash there, you have to put that in front of the underline character, otherwise it thinks it's a command character, not an underline. So that tells Unix that that's, just treat that as ASCII, don't treat that as a command. The next command, underline PSK, that's the one I don't want. The next command, the slash, treat the following dot character is what it is, not a command shortcut. In Unix, the period is a command shortcut. They don't use the asterisk for any character like Windows does or DOS does. And then we had the current file extension, HFE, would only do that on stuff that is already renamed to an HFE. Then you tell it that's the end of the old command. Treat the following dot character is what it is. Then your new extension is just .hfe, or maintains it. And then there's the end of the switch command. The necessary space, and only work on files with that extension. So that saved me a ton of typing. I didn't have to manually rename every file, and I was able to use it on my favorite machine rather than importing everything back to a different machine. Go through here again. Some of the programs, or some of the listings, the DSK files, were a combination of 200, 300, 400 files, all in one giant collection. So as I peeled out the Chicago, the Plato library, the
other libraries out of that, I wound up with other collections. So here's one, and here's the disk names of the disks. Again, I must have touched
Smile.
That's right. Let me close this again. TI-DIR, TI-99-DIR, open it down. Because here's a disk file, and I must have touched on it. So here's, I happen to know which one this is, Ken Gillen's Disk of the Ancient Ones. You got basic demo, C99 programs. A lot of Infocom programs, like Cutthroat is on here. So we can go back. Here's D to F, Deadline, Enchanter, the Funnel Web 40-column disk, Funnel Web 80-column disk. So I took a little time and I just split everything into alphabetical order. At the top here, where it says close this again. Mini Zork, Moon Mist, Infocom Adventure Games. So at the top here, my usual code is here's disks A to C. There's 15 of them in that subfolder. And then again, D to F, 310. I don't know why I have that there. I made a mistake on that. But P to S, there's 15, T to Z. And here's the file listing. So again, it's not going to open in Notepad. It has a text extension. I have to, didn't say to do that either. Right click, open with WordPad, preserve for formatting. Okay, so I went through all these, and here's the MES disks from MESS, the multi-emulator super system. And here you've got the code I use for the disk, A01 is in that folder. The disk name, sectors used, sectors free, and in the bracket, in all caps, is the name of all the files that are on that disk. I realize this convention is a little different from how people usually display stuff, but I had to type all this in by hand. So I wanted to have a few shortcuts on typing in my listing. Some artifacts I ran into here, B number 5, C1 through C5. I had a disk error when I tried to run it. I don't know if that was actually a problem with the disk or if it was a problem with my system at that time. As they say, your results mileage may vary. Here's from the various 1367. 1367, when it was online, had a whole bunch of cartridge files, and it had the entire Plato library, Tiger Cub library, Altman library was all in it. So I put those in their own separate libraries folders. And here's the stuff off the 1367. Again, it says there's 20 folders. Oh, 4A Flyer, the 99 users group. I don't know what's on there. Extended basic games, AC circuit analysis library. Here's everything that's in A. So again, go all the way down to Z. And here's mistake again. You have to remember to right click on text files to open them. I'm not moving it. Get a WordPad. And here we go. This is, it's running off the right side of the screen. But anyway, you have the 1367. There's the same thing you just saw from the cataloging. Disk A01 was AC circuits. Disk A02 user group 1166 was this name, used free. And here's all the program names. Here we get down to A4. The disk name is Adventure. Well, that could be really anything. The program says Adventure, but Identifile says it's an adventure cartridge game, which is probably the original one you get with it. Again, down here, A9 user group 716B. You have a program named 4A Flyer, 4A Manual, Gaming Pro, everything else. Well, you're down here, the second line, it's the program 4A Flyer,
Mr. Pac-Man, D Station, Strike 3, Munchman. So again, I tried to preserve some logical system through all these catalogings where everything is the same as you go from collection to collection. Took a little time to do all this. These files. Just go back to all this stuff, like I said, it was available on the internet for various periods of time from different sources. And I didn't want this stuff to get lost. Here you have command modules. Okay, here we are. Here's stuff that's not DSK. This is in C for C and G. I forget exactly what that is. That's for use with an emulator. Pardon? Cartridge file. Yeah, cartridge file. Cartridge file and a ROM file is what that is. So again, here's a whole bunch of cartridges that Burger Time, Computer Math Games, Demonstration, Disk Manager, EA, TI Writer, everything else. That's on that disk too.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
Because I'm thinking about it. Do you have the game edition version of Yahtzee?
Well, we can look here. Yeah, I know right now if I push a button, I'm afraid I can do something I don't want to do. Yeah, there it is, 1980.
No, that's the 1970. That's the 1980. This would be 1979 version. The reason I asked, there are only about 5 copies of the cartridge out in the wild. I have one of them, so I need to have it done.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
So here's all the cartridge and ROM files that this person had generously uploaded to the internet. I have some videos here that don't run on this machine, but one video that's highlighted is for the advertiser module. The advertiser module, spelled with a Z, was released in Europe, and it was to be put in the machine where it was demonstrated in storefronts as a demonstration cartridge so the customers could play with the TI and it would run it through its paces and show what the TI could do. This module is very scarce. It doesn't have a PHM number, and it was from Klaus Luttefest.
I know about the module. It was never for sale. It was for shop use only.
Yes. And he vacuumed out the contents on it, which unfortunately do not run in a graham cracker or a P-gram. And when I contacted him about it, he said, well, that was for that cartridge only. And if you want to run it in a gram device, it would have to be recompiled specifically for a gram device, not a cartridge. The second video on here is the review and demonstration of Explorer by Craig Miller. So the TI Explorer, or not the TI, the Explorer program lets you really dig into the guts of the TI, and you can watch a program run step by step. You can slow it down, you can stop it, you can change data in the registers. It's about a 20-minute video he does. Then we have the Chaos series. This actually takes up the most of this disk. Chaos is part 2 of the Dimensions videos that were shown on the 2008 or 2009 DVD I gave away. Again, it's all mathematics done in real beautiful 3D computer imagery. This one's called Chaos. You get into motion and determination, vector fields, mechanics, oscillations, billiards. They get into the butterfly effect. The demonstrations are wonderful. Even I can understand what he was talking about in that. Wouldn't be a Faire disk without a something about Fibonacci. What was it I had to open it in?
What was the extension?
Yeah, like picture viewer.
Okay,
yeah, that'll work. Yeah. So it wouldn't be a Faire disk without something by Fibonacci. There we go. I didn't touch anything, guys. And, just something for humor here. There we go. And that pretty much graphically explains the Fibonacci spiral, how each square is twice the size of the preceding one. And you draw that kind of spiral by going through the diagonal corners of the squares. This might seem somewhat whimsical, but this same structure is found in just about every spiraling thing in nature, from plants to especially like snail shells. You will see this kind of spiral. And Fibonacci is the first person that had determined the mathematics behind that spiral. The ratio of the dimensions of the rectangle is also in the golden ratio. So he was quite a guy there. You have on here, yeah, made a mistake. You have 3 README files. One, the listing of the contents of everything that's on this disk, a listing of contents that were on the previous disks that have been given away, along with my email. If there's anybody who wants copies of the previous disks, they can read that, figure out if there's one of them or all of them that they want, and contact me. I'll see about making some more copies of these. And then we already ran through number 3 down here, renaming files in Linux. So that's about it. I had some time off this summer, so I was able to put a little effort into this. We have nuclear physics. Yeah, it might seem a little abstruse, but I know everybody likes mathematics. Is there a way to resize this?
100% of the dot.
Yeah, because I noticed every window here I've used had stuff running off the side. This is a rather unusual website called Blaze Labs. He gets into atomic physics and such, and I really don't understand most of it. But I think most people remember the electron shell, what they call magic numbers, where electrons like to only cluster up in certain numbers and such. And what he has come up with is the 3-dimensional model here, where the quarks that make up an atom, each one makes up one of these limbs of a tetrahedron. And so then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 there, which are your 3 quarks, and each one can be of 2 different possibilities. So this is interesting from a mathematical standpoint on a different way of looking at how matter might be assembled rather than the old clump of grapes theory versus a new way of stacking stuff up in this tetrahedron type array where things nest different. And I don't get much of it, but you like math, you like to play with their TIs. So down here were the 2 split files. Split from mess doesn't mean it's a mess that's split up. It just means I split the original 256 files into different alphabetical files. Any questions? Basically, I wanted to make this presentation, let people at home that can't come here know that, yeah, here's an incentive for coming to the fair. But then I realized it's pricey for coming to the fair, so if anybody wants a copy of this disc, or the previous discs that I've had, again, to contact me. Your previous discs, well, I learned.
You get it when you're done.
Yeah, I'll be fluent at it by then. Is, again, here we go, the 2000 disc was mathematical imagery from Joslay's Math Imagery website. This guy's got links to all sorts of stuff. I couldn't believe it when I got on there. 2007 got a little away from the TI because we got into urban desolation, the kind of art of
old, decrepit, unoccupied buildings that have been deserted for a long time, that people find beautiful. However, there's a group called Opacity that makes it their job to go into all these buildings and photograph them. And their purpose is that they feel that not all history is in history books, and when these structures are demolished, a page of history of the people who lived and worked there is lost. Case in point, all the oceanfront warehouses and tenements that all the people who used to work on the wharves and in the fishing industry and stuff like that, that's all being torn down and replaced with quite pricey condos and split levels and stuff like that. When they're gone, there's going to be no record anymore of the people who lived there, the hospitals that they stayed in, and the businesses they went to. So I found that quite interesting. The 2007 disc also had genetic music. Now this was an interesting thing. I haven't seen this program for a TI yet, but where somebody takes the genetic code, and for each letter, they assign it a different note. And so after a while, you start listening to these compositions and you start recognizing repetitions in the genetic code. It takes a little musicianship because sometimes the code dramatically changes. So in it, it's the person who actually does this transcribing. What note do they assign to what letter? What instrument do they assign? When you get into a thing that would be a repeat of it, do you go with the same instruments or do you go with new instruments? To 2008 disc, I had fun putting this one together. My daughter gave me a book of all these old science fiction magazine book covers and such. And when I got on this guy's website, I found out there were all sorts of magazines and books that were printed in the 30s and 40s, like Popular Mechanics, Popular Science, Mechanics Illustrated. Well, those guys had covers that looked more like a science fiction magazine than the science fiction magazines were being printed then. So I compiled every one of those I could find and put them on there. So that's about the sense of wonder and imagination. There's a whole world in RTI. There's many worlds in RTI. And that disc was to stimulate people's imagination with, when it was possible, when Mars was an older planet like Earth, when Venus was steamy in a jungle and you could live on it and hunt dinosaurs. That was what I was trying to do on that one. I see here in 2009 we had the Dimensions Math series. That was all the Dimension videos. We had Univac commercials I found. Sita Sings the Blues, a charming animation done recently, world's greatest breakup story. There's a battle sequence in it called the Battle of Lanka, where Rama and Ravana are duking it out over Sita on the Isle of Sri Lanka. We had the Edison's 1910 Frankenstein movie. This was charming. It was lost for 60 years. They finally found an old moldery copy of it, and that's what I was able to find. Again, this is the first time Frankenstein was done on the screen. And you could really laugh at it, but boy, it must have scared people when we first saw it. Back to math and numbers on that disc. We have the first 100,000 prime numbers, the first 1,001 Fibonacci numbers, the very large RAM number. I don't know what this guy was trying to do, but he's getting near something bigger than infinity. And here's a fun one, the Human Genome Project. Chromosome 1 out of 224. This is a 270 meg text file. To give you some idea of how big our genetics are. You know, that's 1/24 of it, and it's 278 meg in text. It's quite large. And I included the Quick Media Converter. It was a favorite program I used to convert any form of video audio file into any other. So I wasn't going to saddle people with a video on a disc that their machine at home couldn't play. So I thought, well, I'll include that one. Didn't have the 2011 disc. 2012 here, 3D World magazine. It's a computer graphics and video oriented magazine. Had what they call the Nifty 50. It was the top 50 short computer animation videos of the past 10 years. Next one's just for fun, arcs and sparks, short circuits on YouTube, where it looks more like a science fiction movie. A little Busby Berkeley tribute here, the Chihuahua Dance commercial from the movie Beverly Hills Chihuahua. Our little critters are dancing. 3 short videos. 405 the movie. This was a near disaster movie 2 guys made on apples in their basements, where an airplane has to do a forced landing. It runs out of power, does a forced landing on the 405 freeway in California. Well, of course, the police have it all blocked off. There's nobody there except for this one chunk. And he gets into a whole bunch of mischief with their airplane landing. Male restroom etiquette. This was interesting. It was made with the Sims video game editor. It shows how to be polite when you're in the restroom. And the two-tone, that was the solution to embarrassing problems. The gyro track. This thing will make a road in the forest where there wasn't one before. What was funny is the Metallica soundtrack that I'm sure is what's playing in the cab as this guy's driving along, sawing down every tree. The company behind the gyro track had a contract with the Canadian government to make a road so the government could put in power lines. Well, they were cutting down trees with chainsaws and trying to cut them up and haul them away or run them through a wood chipper, and it just didn't work. It was taking forever. So they invented this gyro track, and people who are tree huggers might blanch at seeing the thing in action, but its purpose was to quickly make a road where there wasn't one before through a forested area. For steampunk fans on that disc, we had Professor Dante, which was filmed in black and white in Victorian era type style, and it's an invention that Professor Dante has. It was filmed in a Halloween haunted house, so they didn't have to build any sets for that. And the mysterious explorations of Jasper Morello was done in a strange silhouette style, where instead of seeing the entire person, you just see the silhouette of that person, as if they're casting a shadow on the screen. And 3 fun videos that were done by a video card benchmarker called 3D Mark. They had a website called Mad Onion, and it was Aeronaut, Firefly, and Proxima. 3 completely different things for 3D shading and such. 2012, we had a humorous video, math and geometry videos, the fractal zoom. Again, remember the Fibonacci sequence in Micropendium. And then we had a cousin to Blaze Labs' new look at how matter's put together with a site called Spirit Science, where the narrator again goes into linking things into tetrahedrons and how that's the base of all matter. And so for the TI, the My Little Compiler, I put that on the disk because that was only available as a download, and I didn't know how long that would be available. So I put My Little Compiler on there. It works with the F18 card. Somebody's done something recently with that. I saw that on the net. I can't say what it was. Tunnels of Doom. Somebody likes the Tunnels of Doom game. They did a reboot of it. They rewrote it to run on a PC. Real nice graphics and everything. Same gameplay. The original music that Hank Mishkoff did was rewritten by Frank Schaeffel, and he really jazzed it up and made a super tune out of it. World War II, we had the Hemp for Victory, shows how important hemp was in World War II for the Navy. How to fly the B-17. It was a good tutorial for somebody who's already a pilot. And I thought, gee, would this inspire somebody to write a flight simulator based on that video? And Private Snafu were all the training videos for soldiers where he does it wrong. And their propaganda from World War II, their racially and ethnically stereotypes. So don't be offended by it, because the idea was to train our soldiers. And I included the original web pages. And again, here, now we're down to this disc. The collection of last year's disc. There are 315 TI games in the Windows emulator. Some of that's duplicated on this year's disc. I had the TI advertiser on there. Those videos were lost. I found one of the videos on YouTube. It was reposted last June. So you can see the TI advertiser actually running. And Rasmus Musgaard had just released the TI Scramble game and the Titanium game. And then I had a video, of course, Fibonacci's Fractals. And this year, well, we've gone through what this year is already.
So that's about it. Any questions? Yes.
PSK files can be V99 files or PC99 files.
Yes.
Did you see if there were PC99 files in your collection?
Actually, a lot of files that were on here were in .ti disk format.
But that's no different than PSK is.
It's the same data in the file, it's just a different suffix at the end, extension.
It's only an extension.
Yes.
If you change the extension, nothing happens.
If you change it to DSK, it's the same.
It's okay. Or if you change DSK to TI disk, you can run it in the emulator of Corning.
Right.
Without problems.
I only changed these all to DSK.
But the
so
problem
I'm
is
using
when
the
you
Flash.
the problem is when you find the PC99 file and it has the extension DSK, it won't run. You can't load it in your compact flash card. It's no use. The only program that can see the difference between PC99 and V99 files is the program of Fred Kahl, TI Dir.
Okay. Here.
So you have to check.
Listen, I hate to interrupt, but we are getting close to the time when we're going to have to break up. Vic, thank you very much for the demo, and thank you for the disc. And what Vic hasn't told you is the reason that he had all the time off the summer. He had a quadruple bypass.
Is give out some door prizes.
Oh.
We have a couple of very nice door prizes. Second thing we have to do, of course, is to judge some TI websites. Okay? We have to judge some websites. Teams will be assembled. We have 3 ladies, so it seems only logical that we put 1 lady on each of the teams to be able to judge each website look and feel. And in that none of the 3 are avid TIers, it'll be even better for us. So, 4 websites. What did I say? 4 ladies. Oh, we have 4 ladies. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do. We have 4 ladies. You know, we could have a ladies team. We can make up a ladies team. No, we don't do that. As the man who should know. All right. Well, however, it's going to be Barry is going to be selecting the teams. So, at any rate, the first order of business, however, as is always the case, is the presentation of the John Birdwell Award. Now we have a number of already recipients of this award in the room today. Tim Tesh is one of our earliest recipients. Charlie Good, I believe, is a recipient. Who else is a recipient? Oh, well, hard to overlook Barry. And me. And John Gedry, of course, all recipients. All have contributed mightily to the TI community over the years and are continuing to do so. I mean, they're all still here. Unlike some of the recipients who are no longer with us, some because they have dropped out, some because they are no longer on the planet or would still be contributing. However, this year, you know, in past years, the John Birdwell committee has, for one reason or another, selected people who are working in hardware, people who are programmers, people who are organizers, people who have contributed in all kinds of different ways, in multiple ways. This year seems to be no different. When I was given this award, this year's award, I noticed that the person who is the recipient this year has contributed in more than one way. As a programmer, as a person who has a website, a person who contributes even to the Faire in a very important way, and that's just his hobby. During his day job, he goes around saving children's lives. So it gives me great pleasure this year to present the John Birdwell Memorial Award for Excellence in Computing to Dr. Waleed Maoli. Yeah.
have to do that again.
Thank
You
you
have
so
to do
much.
that. You have to.
Hold it up.
Bonnie,
hold it up.
give it back. Give it
No,
back.
no, no, I'll go over there.
Give it back.
Thank you.
Not clapping again.
This is solid wood. All right, come on, we gotta do a grip and grin here. We're representing each other. Stand up, there you go.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's how to do it.
Thank you. And did I mispronounce your name? How do you, it's not sakes, for after 20 years. Is it Maluli? Maluli. Maluli, okay, I got that part. Seriously? Oh, here. Here's your second part of the prize.
Oh,
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Well, Waleed, it's 20 years where the memory starts then.
Yeah, Waleed. Yeah, the memory starts going. Now, second order of business.
1, 2.
We have a list of attendees, some of whom are no longer here, so your chances of winning are better if you're not still here. Because you got to be here to win. And the prize that's being awarded has been. I hope it's here.
Vaporware.
No, it's actually here. And this was donated by investments. And Jim, would you briefly describe what this is before I choose a number?
That is the most recent iteration of the cartridge board. It does not stop at 512K like all previous ones. That one stops at 2 megabytes.
2 megs.
Now, the only reason it does not have a chip in it right now of 2 meg size, by the way, I had 7 different ones with me at the fair today that actually had 512K images on them. But that the chips that I got from the first model chips, though perfectly functional from a burning standpoint, did not switch between 8 and 16 bits like their data sheet said they should. They only work as 16-bit chips. So in the board, they don't work because the board needs them to be able to switch back and forth. So I have some more chips on order. Whoever wins this as their door prize, please make sure you contact me, and I will provide you with a 2048K games 1 through 4 compilation, courtesy of one each. Tony. Yes, because he went and built me an image that is already ready to roll. As long as I've got a chip that will hold it.
Fantastic.
126 games.
Here's what we're going to do. Who was it that chose the number last time? It was you, right?
That was James.
Okay. Choose a number between 1 and 18.
Give him a number between 1 and 18, Caesar. Any number between those two numbers. He wants 18.
18. Unfortunately, John O'Callaghan has gone home. I need another number.
Another
between
number.
1 and 17 now.
No, 18's not allowed anymore. Now it's got to be between 1 and 17. Give a good number.
8. Number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Congratulations, Norm. You are the proud possessor of computer fun. Oh, wait a minute. No, you don't get computer fun. That's the next one. You get this one.
All right.
Okay, now we need another number.
Do you
Phyllis?
have a target age at all? No?
Give us a number between
Do you have
1
anything to write?
and 17. Leading 10. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you thought you were going back to Florida empty-handed. Need some batteries, that's all.
It works out much better because I have plenty of room for this in my suitcase.
Yeah.
And what do we have here?
Okay. Now,
And that
Barry,
might set off
Oh,
something
there's-
in the standard.
my portion of the evening.
One more.
Oh, there's one more. Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Very cool.
Oh,
Okay.
wait, we have a special secret.
And
This is special. This is very, very special. All right, let's see. Who am I gonna? Katie,
Yes.
pick a number between 1 and 18, leaving out 8 and 10.
3.
3, number 3.
we can put one.
For some of us, tonight, our cup runneth over. Wally, congratulations.
Okay.
Show,
I'm gonna go buy a logo.
yeah, you can show us what you got. This is from Tim, from Mark.
Oh.
Tim.
Essentially, Mr. Gaskell.
Wow.
Oh, from Bill Gaskell. This is from Bill Gaskell.
Oh, what's on it?
Via Tim.
Not
This is
original,
not
not
polyoptics,
Wow.
with the
Program.
TI 99.
Program person.
Wow, there you go.
Excellent.
Comes with a custom case. I think you just dropped it.
No, I picked it up.
Oh, there it is.
I mean, I could wear it now, but nobody wants to use it.